Good morning, good morning, good morning. You know what today is? Monday Morning Chats with Sack, and Sack is me. I hope that you guys had a great weekend. I hope that you had a great last week. Last week, it was like, from an emotional standpoint, from Monday to Wednesday, it was just a lot. Family issues. And then Thursday, I just got some relief going into the weekend. But overall, it was also healing, right? It was healing. I got a chance to be a guest on the podcast, Blackstone Brothers Distillery. Good guys. They have their own brandy. And so I got a chance to meet them last month. And Saturday, we talked about various things on their podcast, and it was great. So it should air soon. And once it does air, I will let everybody know so you can go check it out. But we talked about so many things. So they wanted to know about my career, like how did I get into tax, like, why did I want to become a lawyer? Like, it was a great conversation. Then we started talking about relationships and mental health. And it was very therapeutic, right? Very therapeutic. And I share with them how I'm an advocate for therapy. And I just finished therapy. So therapy is on Mondays for me. And I like my conversations with my therapist because it's like the things that I tell her, it's like it resonates with her. And she's like, hey, that helped me too. And so we just have a good conversation. But again, I'm reading this book called The Gifts of Imperfections. And I highly recommend people to read this book. It's by Brene Brown. And the title is The Gifts of Imperfection, but the subtitle is Let Go of Who You Think You're Supposed to Be and Embrace Who You Are. And so every week I read this book and I discuss it in therapy and how it relates to me and pretty much trying to understand other people too. But there's a quote that I want to share. It's called, "The thing that is really hard and really amazing is giving up on being perfect and beginning the work of becoming yourself." And so if I had to label this, is let go of what perfect is. Let go of perfection. And so this quote is beautiful because just think about it. Perfectionism is this idea of showing people what we think they want to see so we can be accepted. It's just this idea of, hey, I'm not sure if people can really accept me, so let me put on the mask. I'm gonna put on this mask so you can't see. You can't see my hurt. You can't see these things. You can just see me laugh, smile, but deep down, I'm hurting. But hey, this is not the real me, but I'm gonna put on this mask that's appealing to everyone. And so if you think about it, if you have this mask on, people are attracted to the mask, but they're not attracted to you. This can be platonic friendship. This can also be relationship. They're attracted to the mask. So I'm going to read some of the bullet points that is discussed in this book. Perfectionism is not the same thing as striving to be your best. Perfectionism is not about healthy achievement and growth. Perfectionism is the belief that if we live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect, we minimize or avoid the pain of blame, guilt, and shame. It's a shield. Perfectionism is a 20-ton shield that we hug around thinking it will protect us, when in fact, it's the thing that really prevents us from taking flight. So just think about it. So think about who you are, right? Think about, how would you describe yourself? How will other people describe you? How are you perceived? How are you perceived? And ask yourself, is that really me? Or that's what I'm showing people? And what I share with my therapist, I said, I think that perfectionism is this idea of shame. Like, hey, I'm shameful of the person that I am. Because what if I really show me? Will I really be accepted? I have to look the part. I have to be a certain way. So that way people will like me. And I think that, and I shared this with her, that I said, I think that it's highly glorified in various professions. I can speak for myself as a lawyer in the legal profession. I think perfectionism is glorified. It's like you have to be the top notch. You can't make any mistakes. You have to look perfect. You have to fit the description of what a lawyer is supposed to be. So that way people can choose you. And then it makes me think, well, if you're striving to be this person that seeks approval, but what about you? What do you actually need? Who are you? And so when I think about people like striving to be perfection, because I had that issue, it makes me think about what is it about ourselves that we are afraid of, right? So if you say, hey, I'm striving for perfection, the one thing I shared with my therapist, I was like, I'm a Christian and there's no one that's perfect but God. And so while we can have a good goal to say we're striving to be like him, we can never be like him. And so as a result, as we keep striving, as we keep moving mountains, as we keep climbing, if we have this idea to be like God, we're not going to ever get there. It's a good goal. But perfectionism is like, hey, I want to be the very best. And if I don't get there, something's wrong with me. But have you ever thought about and just say that, hey, I'm human. I make mistakes. I think that was one of my most proudest moments as a law professor. I told my students that I am human. And I don't recall hearing any of my professors sharing that with me when I was in law school. I don't recall that. I tell them that I make mistakes. I will most likely make mistakes, and I have made mistakes as a professor. I made mistakes as a lawyer. I made mistakes as a woman in my professional life, my personal life. But I've learned from them. However, I will continue to make mistakes. I remember when I first started my business, I had this idea that I had to get everything right all the time. And if I didn't get it right, I felt really bad. I felt really bad. And I kept thinking that because I made this one mistake, will people hire me again? Because I wanted to do good work so they can tell other people about me. But if I made a mistake, in my mind, they're not going to come back to me again because I made this mistake. But how I changed the narrative, I said, hey, I'm going to try my very best. And my very best will look different every day. However, if I make a mistake, I'm going to acknowledge it. Instead of overlooking it, I'm going to acknowledge it and see, where did I make this mistake? How do I prevent this from happening again? And if it does happen again, can I give myself grace? And so now, if I made a mistake, I would tell my clients, hey, I'm sorry for that oversight. Hey, let me fix this for you. And send it back. And what I have found is that clients appreciated that. I was able to share something and say, hey, I didn't see that. Thank you for pointing that out to me. My goal is to make sure I correct it before we actually file. My goal is to correct this before we submit this to the IRS. Thank you for that. And I don't feel shameful or guilty for it at all. And so I want you to think about this idea of, what are you showing to the world? What is it? Are you showing people that you have it all together, but deep down you don't? Are you showing people that you're able to manage multiple businesses, but deep down you're tired? Are you showing people that you don't need anybody, but deep down when you're by yourself, you're praying for good friendships, you're praying for a companionship? Are you showing people that, hey, nothing bothers me, but behind closed doors you suffer from anxiety or depression? Are you telling people that, hey, you can solve your own problems, but deep down you know you need a therapist? So what are you showing people? What are you afraid to show about yourself? And why are you afraid? We are not perfect. I shared this with my therapist. I was examining like my relationships when I was like in my 20s. And I remember being the person where it was easy for me to really cut somebody off if they made one mistake. And it wasn't like a bad mistake. It wasn't like something like a deal breaker. But I had this idea of this person had to be perfect, right? Early 20s. We're talking about over 10 years ago, right? I had this idea that this person had to be perfect. They could not make any mistakes at all. If they made a mistake, let me get the scissors, let me cut this person out of my life. And I remember my uncle, he's deceased, but he would tell me, hey, you should give somebody a chance. And I was like, I did give somebody a chance. And he'll just give me this side eye. He was like, did you really give this person a chance? And I shared this with my therapist. I said, I examined that like about 2 years ago, like just really examining those relationships. And what I found is that I had this idea of what I wanted them to be, because in my mind, that was the image that I was portraying for myself and what other people see. Like, hey, I want to be this perfect person. And then when I realized is that no one's perfect. No one's perfect. Everyone has setbacks. And even though I thought in my mind that nothing was wrong, that was the mask that I was showing. But behind the mask, I was hurt. I still didn't know what I wanted in life. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer at the time, or if I was in college, I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. Or at the time that I was in law school, I knew that I wanted to graduate from law school. I just had these idea of what I wanted for career. But as far as relationships, I didn't have an idea of what I wanted. I just wanted somebody to treat me nice. But those things have developed and know what I want more. But most importantly, I told her, I said, what made me know that I'm not perfect is by really getting into the word and just reading God's word and realizing that, hey, yeah, I'm not perfect. I don't pretend to be at all. And I don't want to be. My goal is, if I'm going to make strives to change, is for myself. But when I let go of this idea of perfectionism and I looked at past relationships, I was like, okay, I had this high expectation of what I wanted. And to be completely honest, it was something I could never meet. And once I started to go back to church, and once I really started to like be a part of Bible study, like join a Bible study, and then facilitate it, my whole thought process have changed. And so now it's like, well, it's not so much about having a perfect partner or perfect friendships. It's about, do these friendships align? Are these relationships align? Are they headed in the right direction? And are we headed in the right direction? And because I have that mindset, it makes me look at things a little differently. And so now, because no one's perfect and I understand what perfectionism is and what it can do to people, I give grace. And so I remember one of my friends like, hey, I've been out of pocket, have been talking to people. Hey, I know that we talk often. We haven't talked this week. I apologize. I said, hey, no, that's fine. You don't have to worry about that. That's okay. Because I know that people have good days, and I also know that people have bad days. And even though I'm having a good day, I can't expect somebody else to also have a good day. That's not fair. Perfectionism can be very self-destructive, because it's this belief system that if I look perfect, live perfect, and do everything perfectly, I can avoid or minimize painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame. But to be very honest, my mistakes made me who I am. I've learned from them. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to do Monday morning chats. I'm not afraid to talk about my setbacks. I'm not afraid to share that I've been hurt. I'm not afraid to say at one point, I did not want to forgive people that hurt me. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed to say that I get sad at times. Even though I appear to be happy all the time, sometimes I may go through it. But my thought process and how I handle those are a lot differently. So if I'm having a bad day, I go pray to God first. Then if I need like someone to talk to, I go to a best friend. But I don't want to look perfect. And I let people know at all times. Like, you see these videos, these are not scripted. This is just me talking based on something I've read, but something I believe. And actually something that I actually talked about in Bible study this past Wednesday that I facilitated. That I don't want to look perfect. But this is who I am. And I'm proud of the woman that I've become. And because how we view ourselves and how we value ourselves, that helps us understand people and how we place them. And so I don't desire to be perfect. So people that I'm around, I don't want them to feel like they had to be perfect. I don't do everything perfect. Some things I do. I'm like good at it, great at it. But not all things. But what I can say is that how you do one thing is how you do all things. And the one thing that I am is consistent. But consistency doesn't mean that you do the same thing at the same time every day or every week or every month. Consistency means that you never stop. And so even though I had Monday morning chats with Sack on Monday, and let's say I skip a Monday, that doesn't mean that I'm not consistent. It just means I didn't do it today. Will I do it the following week? Yeah, if I had the mental capacity. But if I don't, I'll try again. I think sometimes we live in this time, this era where we do everything to avoid being hurt. And I'm a victim of it, right? But deep down, your pain can be turned into purpose. And so even though I don't wish a heartbreak on anybody, but that heartbreak, it taught me a lot. Getting your heartbreak at 20, it taught me a lot of things. Getting my heartbreak late 20s taught me a lot. Getting your heartbreak in your 30s can teach you a lot. And I told this with my girlfriend. I said, it's so funny how you learn more about yourself when you're in relationships, like romantic relationships with people. And they're able to see things that you can't see about yourself. And I told my therapist, I was like, I learned a lot from my past relationships, especially in my 20s. And the one that I learned the most one was a few years, well, I'm 36. The last one that I did learn from when I was 28, 29. And I'm grateful that none of those relationships turned into marriage. Like I'm happy to say that. Like there's nothing against the guys that I've been with in the past. Like there's nothing wrong with them, but I'm grateful that it did not turn into something big. I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for that because I needed time by myself. And I needed time to figure out who I was. And not just what I want, but what I actually need. And this book, I love this book because it talks about these things. Like it's good to have this idea of what you want, but what do you really need? And I told my therapist, I said, that's what I'm doing now, like letting people know, like, and I'm going to have these conversations like, hey, this is what I need. I'm not expecting you to be this perfect person, but these are what I need. Friends or whoever. And if you can't give me that, then, well, and so it changed my perception of life and the things that I want. and being vocal about it. Just being vocal. And so I would just share this. If you're someone that you have this idea of being perfect and letting people see what they want to see, you're going to miss out on meeting the people that are meant for you. Because if you have this mask on, people are going to be attracted to the mask and may not be attracted to you. But how about you take the mask off and say, this is me. You either accept it or not. And once you know and learn how to just love yourself, you're okay with you're okay with people not accepting you, because you know that there's going to be people that's going to accept you for who you are. I had to tell somebody, I was like, I see behind all of that, and I still love you. I see behind all of that, and I still love who you are. And my prayer for this person is that I wish that, and I pray that they can look into the mirror and love the person that I see. Not the mask, but the person that I see. I hope that they're able to look in the mirror and say, hey, I love that person, right? I love that person. No one's perfect. No one's perfect. No one's perfect. And so when you look at yourself, there's always room for improvement. No matter how good of a person you are, there's always room for improvement. But are you able to say, hey, despite my imperfections, I'm still a good person. Despite my imperfections, I'm a great person. Despite my imperfections, I have all these things going on. So don't let your success overshadow who you are, because sometimes for high performers or high income earners, we had this idea because we make a lot of money, we have to, they had to live up to this expectation where they can't make any mistakes. But I'm here to let you know that you're human. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Last thing, your feelings are valid. And I told my therapist, I said, I remember, growing up, I remember like sharing how I felt about certain things, and the family would tell me, oh, you don't feel that way. I know what that feels like. I know what depression feels like. I know what stress feels like. And I would think that maybe that's not what it is. Maybe I don't have the right label to express how I feel. But when I changed the narrative, I was like, yeah, that's how that person defines it, but this is my story. And so I'm here to tell you that you're trying to be perfect, but why don't you be who you are? Because people need to hear your story. Your story can set other people free. So I just hope and pray that you can take the mask off, allow people to see you and love you. And if they don't, they're not meant to be in your life. We don't need a life full of pretenders. We need people that are meant to be in our life and that are intentional. And they're there because they love us and they want the best for us. I met a young lady this past Friday, and she was talking about like relationships, and she asked me, she was like, well, when you meet somebody, do you let them know that you're a lawyer? And I said, I really hate that question. I hate when that's the first question that someone asks me, what do I do for a living? Because initially that's just a title, but that's a part of who I am, but that's not all of who I am. Because people had this idea of what a lawyer is. And I'm like, I'm letting you know that that's just one small part of me. But my name is Sakina. My middle name is Latita. I hate it. When I get married, I'm dropping that name because I hate it. I just don't like it. I just think it just doesn't. My sister gave me this name. It just doesn't make sense to me. It rhymes, Sakina Latita. It rhymes, but it's just not for me. But yeah, some people need to lead with their titles because it's letting people paint this image of who they are. No, I'm Sakina. I'm Sakina. And then we could take it from there. But my title, that's just a small part of who I am. So I just hope and pray that you take the mask off, and I hope that you attract the people with the mask off that are meant to be in your life. So if you have the mask on, think about the people that you're attracting. Think about it. So this is Monday, so I would like to shout out to all the dope men out there. You are amazing. You are great. You are phenomenal. You are spectacular. I pray that you are around people that give you the space to really be your authentic self, to give you the space to be vulnerable, to give you the space to just be free. That is my prayer for you guys. And for everybody else, I wish the same for you guys. And I hope that you have a great Monday. I hope that you have a great week. And I just hope that you just live life on purpose and just know that whatever you're praying for, whatever you want, it's on the way. It's on the way. Now I have to get some work done. And so thank you guys so much for joining. You can find this video. It will be uploaded on YouTube. My channel is Sakina Tillman Esquire. And if you can share this video with other people, my goal is to help someone help themselves. And that's it. Take care, guys. Thank you.